Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. I had to switch out my battery. Let me adjust the camera settings again. Let's see. Properties. Of course I'm having camera troubles at the beginning of the stream. Maybe I need to see there's changes. You want to keep them to cancel. Okay. Properties. Oh, it's not working for some reason. Okay. Let me try turning it on. Nope. Okay, I think what I have to do is restart the stream. I hope not. This usually works. Maybe it's not working just because I'm already streaming. Let me try restarting the stream. I'll be right back. Testing, testing. Hey, welcome back to the stream. My name's Josh, and Cultivate Your Best Self is about seeking a deeper understanding of yourself, who you aspire to become, and how and why you value time and money. Today we're going to be talking about 3 reasons why we procrastinate or give up on things that we start, and ways that we can cultivate a consistent behavior change so that it helps us in attaining our missions in life. So today was a super busy day. Obviously I had a little bit of a late start here. We took our dog. You can kind of see her in the background. She's exhausted, but we took her to the dog park today with our son. And we were there a bit longer, kind of sharing our experiences with raising our newborn son with some of the people at the dog park, and lost a little bit of track of time. So that's why I'm starting a little bit late. But can't hear some of you. Oh, what? Your words are skipping and can't hear. Am I speaking too closely to the mic? I know the mic's on. That sound you're hearing is my wife eating dinner. I'm not sure why the sound is skipping. I wonder if it's because I wonder if it's delayed and you're just kind of catching up on me restarting the stream. I'm not sure. But anywho, so yeah, we had a really busy day today. I didn't have as much time to prepare as I was hoping, but I'm really excited about today's topic. I'll see how much I can get through in 45 minutes. I don't want to rush this because this is a really fascinating topic to talk about, especially because so many people struggle with this. So many people struggle with procrastination. I'm frequently on some of the Reddit groups, especially the productivity Reddit group. And one of the most common things I see that people struggle with is procrastinating on, assignments, on their goals, whatever it may be. Procrastination is a huge problem that society at large is struggling with. And I'd like to discuss some of the reasons why that might be, why you might be procrastinating on things. And I want to talk about ways that, we can kind of realistically figure out how to cultivate that behavior change that we're looking for. Oh no. Let me try turning off the mic then. Hello? Testing. Let's see, I'm gonna wait to see if I am sounding okay. Maybe it's too sensitive. Do I need to lower this? Hello? I've reset the mic, but I'm not sure if that did it. Let me pull out my notes while I wait to get a response from my mom here. My wife's laughing at me. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to keep going, assuming that the sound's okay. I'm putting the mic closer because I was listening to one of my videos a couple nights ago. Was it a couple nights ago? And I felt like the sound, like my voice, was a little bit too low. Oh, hey! My sister's here. So she says she hears everything fine. I don't know what's wrong with my mom's sound, so I'm gonna keep going. So I was saying that, I was watching one of my previous videos and I felt like the sound was a little bit too low, so I'm putting the mic a little bit closer. Maybe I should put it even closer. And I can hear my wife watching my live stream now. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so the mic should be picking up the sound pretty well now. So let's get into the first reason why we procrastinate or give up. Actually, before we get into that, I want to talk about just a very basic reason why behavior change is so hard. And okay, cool. Sounds okay. And I think the simplest explanation is essentially hard equals bad and easy equals good. And I know that's like a very kind of blunt way of putting it, but that's kind of like how our minds work, both consciously and subconsciously. We tend to prioritize efficiency, and so things that seem easier will likely get done quicker or sooner than something that is perceived by us to be more difficult. And so in the most simplest terms I can put that is hard equals bad, easy equals good. And we have to find ways to kind of trick our brain into kind of pushing past that very basic like hard bad, easy good mentality. And it takes effort. We know through science that it takes effort to kind of push past that basicness. And we'll talk about, we'll get into the ways that occurs, or that we can, cultivate that. But I want to get into kind of an example here. This example is taken from a TED Talk that I watched from Tim Urban. And if you haven't seen this TED Talk, like I wish I could play it on here, but I can't. I think it's against YouTube's rules, and even if it wasn't, like I don't feel like it would. I feel like I would be doing the video a disservice showing it here. But Tim Urban's video is on procrastination, and that YouTube video has 55 million views. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it here. I'm going to go through some of my notes, but he talks about kind of like that simple mentality of like why our brains process information and process like challenges the way it does. And so essentially what happens is when you're faced with something difficult, there are two versions of leaders in our brain, or like let's say you're at the helm of a ship and they're kind of steering you in a certain direction. There are basically there are two captains. There's the monkey, which is one side of the spectrum, and then you have like the rational like captain. So there's the monkey captain and the rational captain. And oftentimes when you're trying to face something difficult, it's very easy to allow the monkey captain to kind of take control and go the easy route. And that kind of ties into, like the very basic, baddie, uh, what was it? Hard equals bad, and easy equals good. But that was kind of like his way of explaining it. And he goes into more depth as to why, like, people procrastinate. But I recommend watching it. It's pretty entertaining, and like I said, it has 55 million views. It's Tim Urban on TikTok on procrastination. But a lot of what I'm talking about here today is based on what I've learned from experts in their fields, mainly from like psychology and neuroscience, and also drawing on some of my own experiences. I've had my share of procrastination. I still do it to this day. It's something that we all struggle with on, if not a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And it can be difficult to really kind of like get into focus mode and really start to understand yourself on a deeper level, so that you know why you're procrastinating, and you can start to take steps to push past your procrastination, and putting off things that will help you grow and become the aspirational identity that you might be setting up for yourself. And so I want to help you kind of push past it and become the person that you were meant to be. So 3 reasons why we procrastinate. The first one is usually has to do with some type of mental health issue or mental health disorder. Now, I will admit that this kind of goes beyond my level of expertise. There are professionals out there that can help you, and if you're someone who feels like this might be an issue for you, then I recommend seeking out professional help. But it's something that a lot of people today face, and as a society, we're becoming more and more aware of how important mental health is and how much it impacts your daily life, your quality of life. One of the things I want to share is that when I was in my early 20s, I personally experienced severe depression and anxiety, social anxiety. And I eventually overcame that by examining my life and why it was important for me to start making improvements. Now, that doesn't work for everyone, and oftentimes it requires a licensed professional to look beyond, what might be on the surface, at surface level, what might be affecting you. Oftentimes there are deeper rooted issues that you may not understand. And so that's why it's important to seek out professional help to kind of help you explore different avenues of what it could be from either your past or subconsciously, to help bring that up so that you can find ways to cope and find ways to face it and push past it. And oftentimes that's what it takes. But the first step is kind of admitting that you need the help and seeking it out. So that's the first one, is mental health issue or mental health disorder could be a reason why you're procrastinating. The second thing is guilt or unworthiness. Now, I know at least some of you will feel this, but whatever progress lies ahead, you're the one who tells yourself you don't deserve it. Oftentimes it's us getting into our own heads. If you've done something where you feel like you don't deserve the best life, that's coming from your own kind of you're setting your own obstacles, and you need to find ways to push past that, or to forgive yourself for whatever it is that you've done. And then there are other factors as well, and this might be an area where I'm not I I could it could go beyond my level of expertise. But if you're growing up in an environment where you're constantly being told that you're stupid, or that you're not worthy, or that you're in this really negative environment, toxic environment, the more that you're told that, the more you can begin to believe it. And this is true even as an adult. If there are people constantly telling you these negative comments or these negative qualities that aren't necessarily true, uh, if you start to tell yourself that, and it becomes this reinforced loop, then it can become your own reality. And that can be something that is hard to kind of detect, because it happens over time, but and it happens subtly, but it's something that, if you're aware of it, you can start to find ways to push past it, or to kind of change things in the opposite direction. Yeah, I said here, what could you do? What steps could you take that would make you feel like you are worthy? Because I assure you, you are. But how do we get you to believe that you are? And then I refer back to the event that I went through in my 20s. That something that I did that completely went against you know part of what my core values were back then. And it took me about 5 years to forgive myself. And it took me that 5 years to kind of feel like I deserved better for myself. And um, I kind of wish that it hadn't taken so long, but at the same time, like it was kind of like my own process. Like I didn't, I probably should have sought out professional help, but I didn't. I kind of dealt with it on my own, while I was trying to maintain a 9 to 5. And you can kind of hear my son in the background. He's getting a little. I don't know if he's getting fussy or just talking to himself. So that was the second thing. The third thing, and this reason that I'm about to give is probably the most common and the most widely experienced by anyone who's probably watching this. And what it is perceived stress. And I say perceived because any challenges that come our way, the stress that we associate with that challenge is often much larger than what the actual stress of dealing with it is. And that is by far like the most common thing that occurs when we procrastinate on something that we want to get done, or that we want to do. And I want to talk about a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the science behind why perceived stress is such a common thing, and kind of what our brains, what the fundamental like process is that our brains go through that allow us, or that basically like not allow us, but what's the word I'm looking for, that um, our brain goes through this process, and it's kind of natural for us to develop this perceived stress because of what our brain does. So, whether consciously or unconsciously, we procrastinate on things that we believe are going to be difficult or invoke negative emotions. Emotions like fear, it could be fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, whatever it might be. Fear plays a huge role in, our motivations for taking on challenges. Dread, kind of dreading something, dreading an experience that's upcoming. Incompetence, if you feel like you're not particularly qualified, or that you don't have enough knowledge on something. That's one of the things that I kind of feel with doing these live streams. I want to kind of frame it in a picture of like, I'm an enthusiast of all of these topics that I'm talking about, and not an expert. because I'm not an expert. I research these things, and I learn about them, and I want to share them because I think it can help people. But at the same time, like, I still feel like I might be perceived as like, oh, this guy thinks he knows what he's talking about, but really he doesn't. But all of my knowledge is kind of based on experts in their field who do know what they're talking about, and so that's what kind of helps me um, gain the confidence to do these live streams and to share what I've learned, because a lot of it is things that I've learned from other people, and the more I talk about it and kind of experience it in my own life by talking to others, I find that a lot of the things that these experts are talking about are pretty true, and and so that's why. How did I get into this? I was talking about dread and incompetence and like yeah, and gaining confidence in doing these live streams, but yeah, learning is one of the things that helps us combat the things that hold us back from doing things that are challenging or things that will help us to grow. Yeah, learning is one of the steps, because if you don't learn about ways that you can overcome the procrastination, then you'll continue to do it. It'll become a chronic thing, and as long as you keep doing it, you're going to keep holding yourself back from the growth that's kind of necessary for you to get to where you want to be. Insecurity could be one. I'm not all that insecure, about myself. I might be a little bit, but but it's not holding me back from doing these live streams. It's I'm putting myself out here, and kind of pushing past my brain telling me like, what are you doing, like no one's gonna watch this. Like, I mean, you can kind of see in the I mean, I'm supported by my family, which is awesome, but and as long as I continue to stick with this, I do believe that I'll eventually gain more followers. I'll reach a larger audience, and some of the things that I talk about will resonate with them and will help them to grow. One of the examples I give here is, like the thought of starting like a paper, a research paper, or an assignment, a thesis project, or even like starting an exercise routine, or like if you want to start a reading habit. These are some of the common things that people procrastinate on. And if we tell ourselves that these things are going to be hard, then that can be like kind of the first triggers of our brain trying to protect us from doing that hard or challenging thing. And and it goes all the way back to kind of like our primitive ancestors who, if they did something stupid, it kind of meant life or death. And we're not in those times anymore, and so our brain is still reacting in that way, kind of subconsciously, and we need to find ways to push past it, because it no longer serves, like not doing something isn't going to be life or death the way it might have been back, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago. And so in order to push past, you have to realize that it's not the case anymore. That this is not a life or death situation. So one of the things I mentioned here that I think is really important is that most people who need help with procrastination know what they need to do. They know what they have to do, but they don't do it, and they don't really understand why. And I think it's important to recognize that it's not enough knowing what you need to do, or even what you want to do. With certain things, you eventually have to do it, because the consequences might be too great, and you don't want to get to that point where the consequences being great is what's motivating you to get something done. Like it's not as rewarding of an experience, and it'll help reinforce the fact that you need to keep putting things off because of how dire the consequences might be of not doing something. Does that make sense? I think I kind of contradicted myself there. Um, like like you need to pay the bills, and if you wait last minute, actually, you know what? That reminds me. There was this Reddit post that I saw of someone who actually didn't pay their bills until they got their like second or third notice that let's say it was like an electricity bill. If they got the third notice, like, hey, this is the final third notice, we're going to turn off your power, that's when they would pay the bill, because that's how much they were procrastinating on getting things done, and they didn't understand why they did that. I thought that was pretty crazy, but yeah, so like doing things like that will reinforce your behavior in continuing to procrastinate. That's what I wanted to say. um, so let's get a little bit into the science of why that happens. So your brain, in order to protect you, the amygdala part of the brain releases a hormone in response to whatever the perceived stress is. And like I said, it could be anything. It can be like an assignment. It could be doing your bills. It could be taking out the trash. It could be cleaning your room. And if you kind of, whether consciously or subconsciously, tell yourself it's going to be difficult, or you're scared of some outcome that might happen as a result of you doing it, and that outcome stemming from negative emotions, then your brain automatically will release a hormone that helps protect you and tell you, like, it's fine, like, do something easy right now, don't do that hard thing, and you'll be fine. But the problem is that perceived stress typically starts out as, and I'll give this example, this is kind of like my own kind of interpretation of it, but it's a baby monster. This perceived stress is a baby monster when you first put something off. And the longer you continue to put off doing what you have to do, this baby monster will continue to grow at an exponential rate, to the point where it will feel like life or death. This monster will grow so huge that you wouldn't, like, your mind won't be able to comprehend like how you could possibly get something done now. And the example that I'm thinking of is, like, if you have an assignment and you're given 3 months to work on it, and you don't work on it until like a couple nights before it's due, like, that process of turning that baby monster 3 months prior to when your assignment's due, to the point where you get to that second night before it's due, like, that monster has grown so large that it can have like detrimental effects to your health. And people don't realize this, that it can affect you physically. You can get sick, you can get depressed, you can get there's a lot of like physical manifestations of what happens when you kind of build this perceived stress inside your head, inside your mental space. And oftentimes, what it takes to actually get the assignment done is nothing compared to the monster that you create in your head. And that's all from a response in your brain of like this hormone that gets released to try and help protect you. And when you understand that, I think it does help in combating that monster. And I remember one of the examples. Yeah, it is. Anxiety is is an insane monster. I haven't seen Inside Out 2. I'm gonna have to watch it, but now I'm curious about what scene you're talking about. um, but so there was a redditor that posted, something that had to do with the stress related to them procrastinating. And I frequently go on Reddit and I help people push past their issues, what they're dealing with, things that are related to productivity, things that are related to people achieving their goals, because I'm wanting to kind of gain experience in that arena. And I usually follow up with them, like either in a direct message or in that same comment thread that I initially posted a response. But there was one in particular where this person it was a clear example of they had developed this insane monster from perceived stress on something that they were dealing with, and they had something new coming up and they wanted to gain any kind of tips that they could to kind of help overcome um, uh, uh, not being succumb to this perceived stress. And so what I recommended, and I've tried this myself, and it works in this really weird way. But what I recommended was I told him to, or I don't know if it was a him or her, but I told them to kind of imagine that because they're first starting out, that this example that I gave of this baby monster is just a baby monster right now. And what they have to do is they have to develop kind of an army of soldiers to combat this monster. And what constitutes each soldier? And I told them each step that they take to completing whatever that next assignment is. Like let's say it's they have to do like an hour of research, or they have to bullet point a list of topics they want to cover, or they want they gave a list of things that they needed to do. And I said, okay, break each thing down into like a bite-sized task that they can take on, and then try to picture in their mind that when they complete that simple task, that's a soldier in their army. And that soldier has like they could imagine like a soldier with a sword, or a soldier with like a bazooka, whatever it is. It's their kind of imagination. But each time they complete something, imagine that that's a new soldier in their army, and to actually write down like how many times they complete something. And when they get enough soldiers, like that monster is nothing. Like they have an army now to take on that monster. And so I kind of followed up with them. I followed up with them for maybe like a month and a half, and they said it worked for them. They said they actually wrote down. They wrote down. It was like they had a post-it note, and every time they completed a task, they did a little tick mark, and each tick mark was a soldier in their army. And like they had another little post-it note next to it with like a little like blob that was the perceived stress monster. And so each time they didn't do something, like they had to draw the monster a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And so over time, like they wanted to do a task so they can add a soldier to their army. And they realized like that once that post-it note with the soldiers was filled with tick marks, they're like, my army's huge, like I've got this. And they told me that it had helped them. And so that can be one way. I know it's weird, but it can be a way to kind of combat that stress. And that was just one of like kind of my way, like one of my ways, one of my interpretations of how you can kind of overcome that procrastination. I thought that was an interesting interesting story. But actually I hadn't remembered that until just now when I was talking about the baby monster, and then kind of thinking back like, oh, I forgot that I had helped that person kind of overcome their procrastination. um but let's see, what else did I write here. Oh, okay, so the a little bit more of the science behind it, so that when your amygdala releases that hormone that hormone affects your prefrontal cortex, which is in this area, and the prefrontal cortex is responsible for kind of like the rational decisions that you need to make in order to kind of do the right thing, or like to to not procrastinate, to not be overcome by whatever fear might be motivating you from not doing what you have to do. And you and what I that example that I gave of the soldiers with the baby monster, that's kind of a way of overriding the prefrontal cortex to understand that this is not something that you should be putting off, and that the stress related to getting things done is much less than what you perceive it to be, especially when you are able to get things done that you need to get done. Man, we're almost out of time here, and I'm still talking about the three ways. The this perceived stress. I'm still on this perceived stress. I talked about, the longer you put it off, the larger the monster grows. It can manifest into physical symptoms. I'd mentioned that. Oh, and then up to a certain point, when this monster grows so huge, it kind of forces you into a fight, flight, or freeze response, and it can be really detrimental to your quality of life when that if that monster, that perceived stress, kind of freezes you up or makes you run. Like, that's when things are getting kind of way too intense for you to take it on alone. um, I would recommend like seeking out help if you are putting off things to the point where it's like affecting your quality of life. And then there are other people where there are plenty of examples that I've heard of where people put off doing their assignments, for example, until the very last day or just a couple days before, and they basically do like two or three all-nighters to get it done. And obviously it's not the best thing they've ever done, but it allows them to pass. But then it's not something that's going to help them in the future, especially with their quality of life. And it's something that they need to address right away. Something that they have to understand about themselves, of why they're doing it. What's the basis for why you're putting this off? Is it the fear? Is it the uh, you know feelings of insecurity? The more you're able to identify what that is and understand that about yourself, the more you're able to kind of create that army to fight that monster. And the bigger you can make your army, the easier it is to fend off that monster and actually get the things that you want to get done. And then ways we can cultivate behavior change. Like the primary thing I talk about in my notes here is self-awareness. And self-awareness is what I consider to be a superpower. And I think probably in the next live stream, because I'm coming up on the end here. It's 6:51, and I know I started late, but I have to give my son a shower or a bath, and I still haven't had dinner yet. So I'll probably end it here. But in the next live stream, I'll keep this same background. The three reasons why we procrastinate, and then ways we can cultivate behavior change. Because this is part of the cultivating behavior change. And self awareness is kind of a big topic I want to talk about. And I did a video on self awareness, but I want to get a little bit more into this woman named Tasha Eurich. She's an organizational psychologist, researcher, and New York Times bestseller. She did some really wonderful work around self awareness, and she wrote a book about it. It's on my reading list for this year. I want to cover her work, and so I'll go over that in the next live stream. But self-awareness is just the ability to see ourselves clearly. And one of the main kind of takeaways from Tasha Urich's research is that she found that 95% of us believe we're self-aware, but the actual number is actually like 10 to 15% of us. And there's a quiz that you can take, but the caveat is that you have to send a link to to someone who's close to you, and it's usually like a significant other or a family member who knows you really well, because they get their own set of questions that they have to answer about you, and their answers ties into what your answers are for your set of questions. And then they analyze both, both answers, and they tell you like, okay, what there's four main categories of self-awareness, and it tells you like kind of what category you fall into, and it can range from like not being self-aware at all to being like highly self-aware. And so it'll be really interesting to cover that in the next live stream. So so be sure to like, subscribe, so you get that notification for when I go live. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the content. Send what to me? Send what to you? Of the article? I'll have her message me. All right, guys, keep learning and keep growing.